haven't responded to your email, but that's okay. I'll respond soon.
You're totally fine. You're fine. Good to have you on.
Thank you. So I think we're gonna get started now. We're trying to start as close to 3 p.m. as possible, just so we can respect all of your time. So welcome back to Virtual Wellness Wednesday. Today we will be looking at a little bit different virtual etiquette. And so again, this meeting is being recorded. Please sign into the link in the chat box. And we would like to start renaming ourselves to include our pronouns. So if you look at mine, next to my name, Catherine, is she, her. That's just so we can correctly refer to each other with our preferred pronouns. So as usual, mute yourself when you're not speaking, and so have your cell phone muted especially. Use the chat box at any time to write questions or comments. You can hide the video panel to see the PowerPoint more clearly. If you need any mental health support, you can privately chat Lauren. If you receive any unwanted messages from any participant in this group, feel free to chat Laura Beth. And so we used this last meeting, but we are trying to use the raise hand feature on Zoom. And so that is just before you want to speak, just raise your hand and a little blue icon will come up. So click on the icon labeled participants at the bottom of the screen as shown in the picture here. And then when you go over to the box of participants, you will see, if you go to the next slide, Alyssa, when you get a chance, at the bottom of the window on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll click on the button labeled Raise Hand. And so that way, next to your name in the participant list, it'll be a little blue hand, and then we'll call on you, and then to lower your hand, you'll just click the same button again. Awesome. So today, the title of our meeting is These Lemons Are Not Lemonade. Often we hear of when life hands you lemons, lemonade just makes it sweeter, but that's easier said than done, and that's not always the best thing to do. So today's meeting purpose is to manage and cope with life's obstacles, develop a healthy perspective, and learn how to shift our awareness when maybe things are going around us that are uncomfortable or that are unsettling, but we don't have much control over them.
Okay, so thanks everyone for being here today. Starting off just with our intentions, right, and as Catherine talked about, our purpose, right, is to sort of take a different perspective. And so our intention is to kind of help everyone here to learn how to manage roadblocks in your life and practice taking a healthy perspective on reality. So with that, we'll start with kind of an exercise. Let's see. All right, so today we'll be talking about purple elephants, and this is going to be something we'll talk about quite a few different times today, but just keep this in mind. So basically, we're going to walk through this exercise, and I encourage you to participate in whatever way feels best for you. So I'll give some instructions, but just modify and adjust as it fits your needs. So if you're comfortable doing so, close your eyes or shift your gaze to something neutral. It's our first step. And again, feel free to keep your eyes open, but if your eyes are open, just look at something that's not aggressive. So I want you to imagine a purple elephant. Start to consider its size, where it is, the length of its tusks, the deepness of the purple. Where is it standing? What's it next to? Is it making any sounds or moving, or is it sitting in stillness? I want you to really, really deeply picture this elephant. Maybe it starts moving around. Maybe it's in the space that you're in. Maybe you're in a space with it somewhere else. And just really get a deep visual for what this elephant looks like. Maybe it's a cartoon, maybe it's really realistic, whatever it is, just bringing yourself into the space of this elephant. Now, whatever you do, do not think about the purple elephant. Think about literally anything else, anything except for the purple elephant. So whatever you're doing right now, you're not thinking about a purple elephant. Anything else. No elephants, no purple, none of that. So when you're ready, I want you to open your eyes. So, what was that like? How was that last instruction I gave you, right? So first I tell you, think about this purple elephant, and then I tell you, don't think about it. How did that feel? I can't see names for some reason. I see two people with their hands up. If somebody wants to start.
Deanna, would you like to go?
Yes. Wait, did you say me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, just making sure. It was really hard to not think about the elephant, and I was like, part of it was you're like, don't think about the elephant or the color purple, and I was like, oh gosh, that's all I'm thinking about. But also when your brain is just like going so in detail to it, it's really hard to immediately just turn that off.
Mm-hmm.
Kyra?
Yeah, I think the same with Deanna, if I'm saying that correct. When you started to say, don't think about the purple elephant, I felt like my brain was trying to like rebel and think about the purple elephant. So the more you said it, the more I thought about it.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else have any reflections? So for those of you who are just joining us now, I see quite a few of you just entered. The exercise we just did was we spent a couple of minutes just visualizing a purple elephant, and then trying not to visualize it, not to see it in your mind. So did you guys notice anything about what happened when you tried specifically to shift your attention? Was there anything that you felt there? Go ahead, Claire.
I feel like I was trying to think about lemons just to like distract myself, but in the back of my head, I was still thinking like, oh, don't think about the elephant. Don't think about the elephant. You shouldn't be thinking about the elephant. And I feel like I was getting so distracted by the fact that I was trying not to think about it that I was still thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And Jasa?
Like before, when I was thinking about regular things like emails or what I'm going to tell my teachers or like family or just regular things. Then once I was told to imagine a purple elephant, once I was told not to, I didn't go back to what I was thinking about before. I went to random things that I would never have thought about regularly, like food, pizza, rain, and then I tried to bring my mind back to the track of what I was thinking about before the elephant, but it didn't really work.
Mm-hmm. I think what you're bringing up is something really interesting, because what I really like is that actually the purple elephant, it seems like for you, was able to clear your mind of the things that were happening before. So it served like that visualization of that focusing on something else really vividly seemed to help at least get away from some of the things that were on your mind originally. So that's a really cool side effect too, because what I was trying to do in this exercise is really like, what happens when you're really focused on something and then you try to get away from it. Sometimes it can be really hard, but it seems like for you, the purple elephant was the way to get away from it. So that's really interesting. And I love hearing that perspective. I think somebody else had their hand up. Anyone else want to add something? No? Okay.
I don't see any hands up right now, so you can continue.
Great. So when we think about purple elephant, this really is just a metaphor for the big thing in our lives, right? So they use the expression the elephant in the room. It's something that you always see. It's kind of big. It's hard to ignore. It's always there. So there's often a purple elephant in our lives. So this is a thing maybe like that we're thinking about before we just kind of switched to the purple elephant today. What was that thing on your mind that even as you were thinking about the purple elephant, your mind kept going back to, right? So what is that big thing? Sometimes it's our friends, our family, fighting, worries, fears. I want you to maybe like sit and think for a second. What are those things that are the purple elephants? And if you want to close your eyes while you think about it, you can, if that helps you focus. But just think about, maybe what's one or two things that serve as this big elephant in the room in your life. You maybe just think about them or even like write them down or. If you've all taken a moment, you've thought of like one or two things, how does it make you feel in your body when you're thinking about this? So we're going to kind of make a word cloud to think about, like, keep thinking about that purple elephant, that thing that's uncomfortable. And we'll share kind of how that makes you feel in your body. So what you can do to prepare as we're getting the word cloud set up is start to scan your body from like the tips of your toes to the top of your head. Notice if you feel any tension or tightness in your legs, your knees, your ankles as you're thinking about this topic. Do you notice anything happen in your stomach? Is it quiet? Is it loud? Is it, making any noises as you're thinking about this? What happens in your chest? Do you notice any tightness, anything in your heart or anything in your mind or anything like that? And what's happening in your head, neck, throat, etc.?
You see my screen now?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Snap, we want to jump in and kind of add what you're feeling about this. Anxious? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Distracted, worried, stressed. Mm-hmm. Headache, misunderstood, lonely, overwhelmed, tightness. Uh-huh. Frustrated. Yeah. Ashamed, separate, uneasy, hopeless. It really feels like a lot of people are saying anxious or overwhelmed, distracted, detached. Yeah. Angry, crazy, stuck. Mm-hmm. Yeah, these words are really heavy. I feel like, is anyone else feeling like these are kind of heavy? Maybe give me like a nod or just like looking at these words, I'm getting uncomfortable. So if the principles apply the same as the exercise that we just did, the more that you try to not think about it, what happens? You tend to focus on it more. Absolutely. Absolutely, right? The more that, Deanna, did you want to add?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And then also sometimes there's like this meta thing that happens where you get frustrated that you're frustrated about something. And so you're thinking about how you're trying to not think about it. And then it just adds another level of like stress to it. That's all I wanted to say.
Absolutely. Like the more that you're like, oh, I'm frustrated because I'm frustrated, right? I'm anxious because I'm anxious. I'm distracted because I'm distracted, right? It's a kind of a circle. So one of the strategies and the tools that we can use when we're feeling like, oh, I can't stop thinking about this purple elephant, the ignoring it doesn't usually make it go away. What often helps us as a better strategy is the acceptance of it. Say, okay, there's a purple elephant in the room right now. Let me take a look at it. Maybe label it, name it, identify it, because maybe instead of it being this big giant thing, then it can become this smaller thing that you can sit in a normal place, right? Because oftentimes these are thoughts that are important, or there's a reason why we're thinking about it, and we don't want to just ignore it or dismiss them because it's a part of us, right? These are our thoughts, and sometimes they have a place, but often do need to be taking up the amount of space that they need. The thing is that a thought that's left unattended will often take up more space than we're originally meaning it to, right? So if we're not clear, our thoughts will just sort of run wild and take over all our time. But if we just say, okay, I hear you thought, and let it pass, we can sometimes be a little more effective. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts about that? I know it's kind of a confusing concept. It's different than what we usually think about. Everyone see my screen or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see your screen.
So any questions or thoughts before we kind of switch gears, or Corinne, anything you want to add?
I will, but I want to give space to. So as Alyssa said, you know, our negative thoughts are really, I mean, they're a part of our lives. The more we try to ignore it, the stronger it gets, right? And because where the attention goes, the energy flows. So we think like, if we don't pay attention to them, maybe it's not going to bother us. But if we take the moment and we just pause and we name it, it's a way for us to sort of be released. So we call this the purple brain, right? What happens in our brains to make us feel this way. So with the adolescent brain, and you guys probably know a lot of this stuff, but just to review some of it, the reward center in your brain, in adolescent brains, and adolescence, by the way, goes until you're 24, 25 years old. So, it's used to be, 18, 19, but it's really 24 or 25 when the brain development is complete. And the reward center is a lot bigger in the adolescent brain. And so the reward needs to be instant and constant. So the dopamine hit needs to be more intense. The dopamine is the hormone that, is the feel good, like the excitement hormone. And so we need to really get more of it in order for us to feel more at peace. So that's something just to know in terms of like why you might feel antsy and why you might feel very like when we're very impulsive, and especially during times, and the brain, the adolescent brain is also much more sensitive to stress than the adult brain. So that's something also to be aware of, especially, during this time when things are not what we're used to. We're going through change. So there's going to be stress because we're going through change. And sometimes stress can be good, and sometimes it can be negative. So when we're noticing that we're anxious or we have these uncomfortable or negative feelings, there are ways that we can sort of hit the pause button and help us cope better. So that's really what we're trying to share with you today. And the way into the body, when we notice that our body might be sluggish. So for example, we have a really hard time getting out of bed in the morning and we need like that boost. You know, there's really nothing that's going to physically get us out of bed. We have to start with the mindset, and that's how we need to get out of bed. Like, I need to get out of bed because of A, B, and C, whatever it might be. I need to take the dog out. I need to pet the dog. I need to start my day. You can even do, like, there's this technique where you can do a blast off, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you know, whatever sort of commitment to get yourself out of bed. It's certainly, you know, something that you're going to have to do with your mindset. And so the opposite is true. When our brain might be foggy or anxious, or we're not, you know, the clarity, like it's just things we're feeling really scattered, or for whatever reason, that's a signal to us that we need to get into our bodies, right? So we've shown you a couple of different ways to get into the body. And you can do this in terms of going for a run or doing jumping jacks, or like seriously, jumping jacks will clear your mind. If you do like 100 jumping jacks or 50 jumping jacks, just getting yourself like out of your mind is a way to do it. You know, obviously yoga or any kind of movement of any type, put a song on and dance. So just wanted to check in with you guys. Is this making sense to you? Do you have any comments or feedback for us about this and the way the brain and how we have to shift it depending on how we feel? Okay. And one of the ways too is through our breath. You know, we shared last week, we did the Ujjayi breath. I'm wondering, did anybody happen to do the breath or any of the practices that we led last week before I lead us into a new practice? Anyone? Because I think we just want to check in. So you appreciate the jumping jacks suggestion. Yeah, you can do that almost anywhere, right? Easier than push-ups for sure. Okay, we can move to.
I had a question for you. So what happens, like, if you're trying to do this, right? You're stuck in your body or you're stuck in your mind, but you're not able to like focus on either one of those. What do you do?
So for me, I go to the breath. That's something that really helps me personally. Like the belly breathing that and the Ujjayi breath, you know, those two really, really help me. Also something I can show you, we can work in now is something called box breathing. Has anybody ever heard of box breathing? Yeah, so box breathing, okay. Yes, the Insight Timer app, Kira, that is a godsend. Yeah, for sure. I use that a lot. So has anybody else heard of the Insight Timer? It has like 30 or 40 or maybe 50,000 free guided meditations. It also has a feature that you can just use a timer, but depending on how you're feeling. So this is a really great tool. Thanks, Kira, for bringing this up. It's a really great tool if you're feeling stuck and don't know what to do, because it'll give you cues, like if you're feeling anxious or if you're feeling like it's hard to sleep or whatever you might need, whatever issue you have, you can just click on it and then it'll give you different choices for different meditations or breath work that can help you out from that. Okay, we'll go into box breathing. And box breathing, what, go ahead.
It looks like Hyra has her hand up again.
Oh, thank you.
So I also wanted to add on is something I struggle with. It's kind of hard to like meditate for me and like just to stay calm for like a set time. but I did find that the Insight Timer has like, I guess, like confidence and mood booster videos. So it's not only meditation. Yeah.
Thank you, Kyra. Hyra, am I pronouncing it right? Please correct me, because a lot of people call me Corinne and it's Corrine. So I don't mind being corrected. I want to get it right.
I think the second time. So Hyra?
Hyra.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, because it also has just talks. So it might have a talk on like uncertain times. I've seen courses on just a lot of different offerings. So yeah, don't be intimidated that it's just a meditation app. It's really all over, like they have a lot of stuff on positive psychology too, like your overall well-being. So, and it's free. Did I say that? And it's free.
Green, can I
many
add
times?
something?
Yes.
So yeah, I wanted to just share, I think too, sometimes when we're just in my own experience as well, like when I'm trying to shift something, so say I'm like really in my head and, you know, I know a lot of mindfulness techniques or to go to the body or whatnot, and then it's still like, so I do like a body thing or a breath thing, and then I come back and I want to feel more clear and I want to feel less like in my head, and I'm still in my head. And so I think, like, to the point of purple elephant, like that almost becomes the purple elephant, like of like, oh no, I'm in my head and I can't, and I'm like feeling clouded, but I can't shift it. And then it gets stronger and all of that. And so I think at times like that, I've really had to work on just like the acceptance of like, okay, like I'm feeling really anxious right now, and like that's okay, because then, at least in my experience, that's allowed it to move on its own, as opposed to me like focusing on it and trying to like create a shift, and then it makes it like in a weird way makes it stronger, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to like offer that as something I know personally that's been helpful as we talk about like kind of shifting ways that we're feeling.
Thanks so much for saying that, Lauren, because it, I mean, I just had an instance today. I have a presentation to give next week, and it's something that I'm really anxious about. We had a dry run today, and I feel like a different person now that we had the dry run, and I didn't even have to like give the presentation that I needed to. They were just doing technical things, but I feel like a different person. And I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be so anxious once the day comes. I mean, maybe a little, but it was ridiculous, to be honest with you, how anxious I was. And what I do is that I name my anxiety, like it's got a name. My anxiety is named George, seriously. And I will try and sit down and have a conversation with George, and just maybe it's journaling. You know, journaling is another way to also express and sort of like get it out, you know, because the more that we're in our minds and we can't get out of this purple elephant loop, I can't get, you know, we're not going to get away from George, or I'm not going to get away from George. And the more that I can, like, what is George trying to show me right now? And it's really about like, I'm okay. The situation, I care a lot about the situation, is really what it's telling me. So the more you can like engage in it, you know, what Lauren was saying, and you know, Alyssa, like we're going to have these purple elephants in our lives, and there's like no way out of it. And how many times, I mean, like I've been practicing these things for years, right? And I'm still human. So the more we can just find ways that work for us. So you're just going to have to experiment. Every life is an experiment, and there are practices. And, you know, we're trying to give you different ways to navigate through. So before, I was going to show you box breathing, but let's go to the next slide, and maybe we'll integrate box breathing in here. The next. So do you guys, actually a little conversation about this, the brain or the body. Do you know works for you, or what you have a tendency to which side of the coin to be on necessarily. Like, what have you used that has worked for you? The body. So you can use the chat function or raise your hand, whichever works better for you all. Body. The brain can get in the way of the body for sure.
So something that helps me is that I sometimes try to look at thoughts objectively and just see it like it's there. I name it. I try to understand why it's there. Kind of like the concept of ruler before from Mark Brackett. We had a little post on Instagram about that. And kind of just letting it be there. Like, is there anything I can do about it? Yes. Try to do something. No. Okay, it can be there and it will go when it's ready to go.
Yeah, the acceptance is really, it's key. Thanks, Catherine.
I wanted to add, did you raise your hand if you know that your thoughts are not your personality? That's true. So for those of you who are not raising your hand, that's just a fact. Your thoughts aren't who you are. And, you know, it's the same reason, you know, sometimes you have a really bad dream that makes you feel uncomfortable. You're like, oh my God, and you like kill your best friend. And you're like, I would never do that in real life. It's that sometimes these thoughts, they're truly just random and they're not actually purposeful. Alyssa, were you going to add something?
Oh no, I was just raising my hand to the comment.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone, at least like, just that's something that you can keep in your toolkit, that when you have a thought, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's who you are. Or that's, you know, it might just be that your brain came up with a thought and it had a reason for coming up with it, but we can ignore them, and that's okay. We can just let them go right past us and not hold on to them so tightly, because it's not who you are as a person.
Right. So you can even think of thoughts as like, oftentimes there's the metaphor of the clouds that, you know, are just passing by, or leaves on a river. And what happens when we have suffering, right? It's because of the story that oftentimes it's because of the story that we have in our head about what happened. And it's not actually reality. Like if somebody doesn't text us back, or doesn't answer the phone, or whatever, or there's a tone used, you know, we often take it personally, whatever the situation might be. And that goes back to what we were talking about last week about self-worth, right? Like, do we need to take this personally? Like, is this thought really, can it just be a thought? Can it just be a thought and not take it personally and not take it in? And then can we then take our attention to something positive? Like, that's why we had you, you know, do some work around 3 things that you did well, you know, every day. Hopefully some of you might have done that exercise, like just even internally, like, what did I do well? Because it's really important. It helps to create this neutral place with the thoughts instead of our reaction, because our body does not know the difference necessarily between a thought and an actual event. That's why visualizations can be so powerful, because the same emotions and the same emotional reactions are coming up as if the event was happening, right? And so that's something to keep in mind. That's why it's important when we do have these thoughts, when we go to the brain, okay, my feet are on the floor, we're doing the jumping jacks, you know, something to get out of that train of thought that might be happening. Does anybody have questions or any more comments on that?
An example of going to the body, Emerson, they said, I rely on soothing physical sensations like wrapping myself up in a soft blanket or smelling essential oils or using box breathing.
Yeah, I'm a fan of essential oils. I have like right next to me. because anything that's going to be soothing to you, and like wrapping yourself up in a blanket, even just giving yourself like a hug purposefully, and saying an affirmation like I love you or I'm here for you, just having this touch can really help, anything that can bring you back. Thank you, Emerson. Anyone else? Okay. So moving on, STOP is an acronym that we can use to help us really, it's a different coping strategy. So it stands for, the S stands for literally stop what you're doing. Just take a pause, just pause, just stop. You notice that thought going, you notice where it's going, and you just have to stop. Oh, there's the thought. You take a breath. So the T is for take a breath. And then you observe, what is that thought saying? What is it saying? And then how is it showing up in the body? This is another way of saying, name it to tame it. So you can just say, oh, anxiety, excitement, sadness, anticipation, whatever it might be. What's important here is that you become a neutral observer. So you're the witness to your experience. So it's not, I am anxious, or I am sad, or I am depressed. It's, oh, look who's back. Look what's happening in the body. Look what's happening in the mind. What's going on is my heart. So, and then taking an inventory, you like drop inside, sort of like stop, drop, and roll, if you all have ever heard that. So you stop, you take a breath, you observe it, you're dropping inside, and you're noticing what's happening. You're noticing what your reaction is. Maybe you have sweaty palms, maybe butterflies, maybe you have a smile, whatever it might be. And then you proceed. The P is for proceed. You make a choice. Then you take action. But you're doing all these steps beforehand before you do take that action. And you can take more than just one breath, right? So let's go ahead and, if you would, if it feels okay to you, either close your eyes or cast them down. And I'm going to invite you to think of a situation on a scale of 1 to 10. It's really like around a 5 or a 6 that may have been difficult or a little challenging for you this past week, either on your own or with another person. Maybe you can think back to a reaction that you had that you maybe want to experiment using this modality. So go ahead and get that in your mind. And you just pause, the S, and stop. And then you take a breath, take a nice deep breath. You can even place your hand on your belly or your heart if that's helpful. So just take a breath. Maybe we'll take 3. Just take a few breaths. And then notice how you're feeling as you envision this situation. So you're the observer, you're the witness, and it's just like you're making a checklist. Like maybe the jaw is tight, maybe your fists are clenched, maybe you're feeling like you have a soft belly, maybe the heart is fast. So just naming what's going on. And then if you're able to also perhaps name the emotion that's arising, What are you noticing? And then the P for making a choice. So proceed. You make a choice in the situation that may be the same or it might be different from when you first, from the first situation. And then as you're ready, just open your eyes. All right. And would really love to invite you to just report out what you noticed about that. Was that something that was difficult for you? Was it or challenging, or was it something that was easy? And then what did you notice about doing the process? So you can use the chat or you can raise your hand. Just what was your experience like?
Deanna, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, so my experience was I found it way easier to go through this process looking back and reflecting because I kind of have heard of this similar process before, kind of like thinking about what's happening and then making a choice. But it seems a lot easier to react in the way I would have, that probably would have been better using this now than in the moment. But it was helpful.
Claire?
The observe step was kind of cool for me. I've never considered myself a very like bodily anxious person. I feel like when I'm anxious, it's mostly in my head rather than like in my body. But I felt like when I was observing, I was noticing like my hands were twitching and like I kept moving my feet around. Like I just wanted to do anything to distract myself from actually thinking about this and like putting my mind to it. So yeah, I liked being able to like actually identify that I was worried about it both in my head and in my body.
Mm-hmm. So it was a dual battle. It was going on both. So at the end, did you, what did you find when you like, for the proceed for take a step?
I think that I had to recognize that there's nothing I could do about it until like, I'm very nervous about an event that I have this weekend. And like, I have to drive for like, I have to drive back to my hometown in Indiana with my older sister, and it's like 10 hours away, and we're doing back and forth in 2 days, and I'm so nervous about it because I've never driven for that long, like actually driving. And so I think that being able to recognize that like there's nothing I can do right now or tomorrow to like fix that, I'm still gonna have to do it anyway. So being able to recognize that there's nothing I can do right now, I just have to accept it, was so helpful.
Good.
Something from the chat, Jada said it made her feel a little calmer. Lauren, when I was observing, it was hard to get into the body, but instead had a lot of thoughts. Kyra found it was very difficult to stay grounded and reflect on what's going on outside the brain, but super helpful technique to help herself stay grounded and calm.
Awesome. So these are really, really good reflections of how powerful the mind is. Like, so powerful, right? It's hard, like there was resistance. And like, can we be, like the title of our presentation, like it's lemons, right? Can we sit with the lemons right now instead of trying to make it different than what it is? Oh, I had a lot of thoughts. Well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if the average is 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, it means some of us like me have 100,000 thoughts a day, you know? And so like reeling them in, it's not just like a light switch that we can flip. That's why we call these practices, and to really be compassionate and kind to ourselves, you know? And this is one of the techniques, and the more that we can practice it, the better off. So one of the things that you can do is maybe set a timer on your phone a couple times a day, because my day goes like this. So there are difficult things throughout the day, and sometimes we find, oh, well, we've had a really bad day, when that might not be really we've also had good things happen in a difficult day. So this is something that can help you with difficulty. So we'd invite you over the next week, before we meet again next week, to try this out at least once or twice a day, and just pause and notice, okay, what was a difficult moment for me? And did I use this? Did I not? How could I have done differently? Just really try and be an investigator of your life with curiosity and kindness, right? Because we're all learning. Does anyone else have anything on this? Okay. So in the past few weeks, where is one time you have accepted the unacceptable? So when we say this, it's more like, for example, to me, it would be unacceptable. Before this pandemic, it would be unacceptable that I wouldn't have human contact for a few days, right? When my children are visiting with their dad, I don't see a lot of human beings, except on walks or whatever. So I've come to accept something that would have really been unacceptable to me in the past. So that's what we're curious about, is to get from you, what might you have accepted that in the past might have been unacceptable. And you can do this in the chat, or you can raise your hand, whichever works better for you.
From the chat, Kyra said being productive with an unstructured schedule.
Right? I mean, we would have, that's a great example, right, Hyra? Because we never imagined, I saw a post that said 5 years ago, when we said, oh, we envision ourselves in 5 years, everybody was wrong. Nobody got it right. Where are we going to be in 5 years? Nobody got it right. But the unstructured schedule, we would have never accepted online training, right? Or online learning as a form of education. No, we have to be in person, and yet here we are. Right? So Jada said not being able to go out with friends and FaceTiming people when I used to never FaceTime, right? It would have been unacceptable not to go ahead. And then Lauren said making a functional workspace in my bedroom, which I would have never thought possible. It actually showed me I have more space than I thought. Excellent, right? Because again, we have these ideas of how life is supposed to be and what we have and what we don't. And then Emerson said, before the quarantine, I would have found it unacceptable to not prioritize quality in-person time with the people in my life. This has encouraged me to develop my solitary hobbies more now, like gardening and whittling. Awesome, right? So we've had to really be resourceful. This has been a way for the mirror to be shown. I heard a talk that said, the world is in a timeout. Literally from the priest to the pimp, we're all everybody is in timeout right now. Everyone is in timeout. The world is in timeout. And we would have thought, no, we can't do this. So it's a way to shine a mirror on what's important to us, right?
Deanna, would you like to share?
Yeah. So working has always been really important to me. It's been very rewarding, but there have been obvious things hindering me being able to work. So I've had a major cut down in hours, and normally I would not be able to accept that. I would ask for more. I would look for other options, but realizing the situation and being grateful that I even get to work has helped me accept something that normally I wouldn't have.
Thank you so much. Yeah. The gratitude is such a key piece, what to focus again, like where are we putting our minds? And gratitude is really, really important. So, which I didn't pay Deanna to say that, which brings us to our next slide, naturally, which we're just going to take a moment. We'll do the box breathing here because I keep on mentioning box breathing, but haven't done it. So we'll do it here. And then we'll go into just something that we're grateful for. So as you're ready, come to either your eyes cast down or closed. And the box breathing is an inhale of 4, a hold of 4, an exhale of 4, and a hold of 4. And you can even draw it with your finger on your leg or on your chair if that's easier for you to help keep your focus. So as you're ready, inhale for a count of 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Made a mistake. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. And if you want, you can continue doing that breathing on your own, or just release and bring to mind something or someone you're grateful for in this moment. And then as you're ready, open your eyes. And just with the show of hands with thumbs up, thumbs to the side, or thumbs down, how's everybody doing in this moment? Great. Awesome. Does anyone have a question? Okay, so we'll just wrap up for today. When we take steps to accept our reality, we will feel less stressed and ready to cope with the situation. Right? So acceptance, it's a practice. So be kind and gentle to yourself.
And remember that sometimes your purple elephants aren't going to go away, but they don't have to be the only thing you pay attention to in the room. So sometimes the only thing you can do that day is just take your purple elephant from being the only thing in the room to a smaller thing in the room that maybe sometime catches your attention, but then we just move it on to something else. So it's like, how do we say, okay, purple elephant, I see you, I hear you, I acknowledge you. I'm not forgetting about you. Don't worry, I can't forget about you. But I'm going to look at everything else in my room. I'm going to enter my body and clear my mind until I feel like I can do something else. And sometimes that's just, especially in our situation that we're in today, this is just all we can do is just keep coming back to something that's more positive, more pleasant, or the things that we're grateful for, like you all being here with us today.
Thanks, everyone.
Really
Thank you,
appreciate
Corinne
you
and Melissa.
joining. Thank you, guys.
So there are some announcements, right?
Yes. So there's a circle group again with Corinne. That is, what day is that again?
It's on Tuesdays from 4 to 5.
Great. And I will include that in our recap email. We are still looking for more This Is My Brave auditions, specifically males in high school who would like to audition. So you can still email Erin Gallagher. Our end of the year survey is still out, so that's due this Friday, May 29th, as well as a club renewal. And our Pride campaign, we are all about that, and that's going on right now. So you can check out our website with /Pride and to see what we have up there. And then we also have our guide calendar, which will give out more details about events to come soon. And resources, as always, feel free to reach out if you have any questions or need some clarification. Please feel free to reach out to us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.